بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما رب زدني علما رب زدني علما يا فتاح يا فتاح يا فتاح. My very dear respected brothers and friends and elders and dear mothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, first of all I'd like to congratulate everybody that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the ability and tawfiq that you have come here to learn some ilm. In the hadith it comes, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said in the hadith to the near effect that if a person goes and learns one ayat of Quran, if a person goes and learns one verse of the Quran, that person gets the reward of 100 rak'ah of nafil salah. And if a person goes to learn one chapter of ilm, one category of knowledge, for example, today we're going to be learning about Zakat, or somebody goes to learn about Hajj, or learn about Salat, or learn about Nikah. If a person goes and learns one chapter of ilm, this is better than 1,000 rakat of nafil salat. And if you were just to calculate 1,000 rakat of salat, if you were to do 1 minute a rakat, which is express, that would still take you, I calculated, about 16 and a half hours straight. So imagine praying salat for 16 or 17 hours. You would get more reward by sitting in a majlis like this and learning ilm, some ilm. This is more rewarding in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And alhamdulillah, your masjid is not such a big building. Inshallah, soon it will be. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the tawfiq and the ability. The brothers are trying, alhamdulillah. But we see in this masjid, mashallah, ulama are coming. You have ulama here, you have muftis here. And there are programs for the community, for the brothers and the sisters, for the children. They have the maktab, mashallah. And for the adults, we have programs like this to learn the deen. This is very important. Some masjids or some places, they have very big fancy facilities and amenities, but in terms of ibadat or in terms of ilm, in terms of teaching, there's not that much. It's more like a social center. Alhamdulillah, this masjid, the management brothers and the ulama here, they're trying that their program such so that the people, all spectrum of the society, the men, the women, the children, they can learn the deen of Islam and learn our deen properly. Alhamdulillah. So today we'll be talking about Zakat. Whatever I know, I will try to impart to you. Whatever is correct and whatever is good, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever mistake there is or in something inappropriate, this is my own shortcoming, and we will try our best to impart some knowledge and ilm. Inshallah, we will also give some opportunity to ask questions from the brothers, and if I don't know if there's some system where the sisters can write the questions or something, if possible, we'll also try to entertain questions from that side also if possible. Before I start the actual slides, first I will talk some fadail of Zakat. Zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and it's so important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Zakat many places in the Quran. And many places, if not most of the places where Allah mentions Zakat, Allah mentions Zakat with Salat. Aqimus salah wa atu zakah. Establish your Salat and give the Zakat. So Zakat is paired up with Salat many places in the Quran and Kareem. Meaning one of the reasons is to show the importance of Zakat. Salat is ibadah badaniya. Ibadah badaniya means that's something you do with your body. And Zakat is ibadah maliya. Maliya means something you do with your wealth, your finances, your money. So Zakat is very important. And if a person does not give Zakat, very, very sinful. So many wa'id and so many punishments and so many warnings have been mentioned in the Quran and also in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I would suggest that the brothers and the sisters, we should try to read Fadail Sadaqat. We usually read Fadail Amal, which is also a very important book, but we should also try to read Fadail Sadaqat. In Fadail Sadaqat, there are many things in Fadail Sadaqat. It's such a huge book, it's such a masterpiece. But in there is the section about Zakat, the rewards of giving Zakat, the punishments of not giving Zakat, And the first part of the book, one of our elders, Maulana Ibrahim Devla, Damat Barakatum, he mentions that the first part of the book is written for rich people, those who have wealth. What should they do with their wealth in terms of zakat and sadaqah and charity? And the second part of the book is for poor people, those who do not have wealth. Is targheeb and recommendations of tawakkul and sabr and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should know some of the fadail, and we should know the importance of sadaqah and zakat specifically, inshallah. Zakat also is a little bit dry topic. There are going to be a lot of, I'll try to make it interesting as much as I can, but there will be a lot of there will be some technical terms, and they may go over our heads sometimes, maybe because I cannot explain as well as other people may, but there's some technicalities and some jargon that will be presented. So sometimes it may get a little bit boring, but these are things that we need to learn. We need to learn. Zakat is a pillar of Islam. Zakat is not that I just take some money, some cash, and I stuff it in the masjid box and that's it. Zakat has to be, just like we learn how to pray salat, we learn how to make our hajj, we learn how to fast, we have to learn the rulings of zakat also. Zakat, let me give you a brief summary of zakat. How do I give my zakat? I have to add up all my zakatable assets. What are zakatable assets? Inshallah, we'll talk about that later. The things which I have to give zakat on, I have to calculate the dollar value of that. And just briefly, before I get to the slides, I calculate my cash, my gold, and my silver. There are other things also. I'm just mentioning three, the major three that many people have. My cash, my gold, my silver. I get a dollar amount for that. And then I minus any deductibles. There's only one basic deductible. If I borrowed money and I owe it to somebody, then that I minus that. So I get the first number is my pluses, my zakatable assets, basically gold, silver, and cash, plus other things. And then I minus the money that I owe people, that I owe somebody. Then I get a number. Then that number is my zakatable assets, my net zakatable assets. So for example, if my zakatable assets are $120,000, $120,000 of cash, gold and silver. And then $40,000 I owe to somebody because I bought something from him or he lent me the money, so I owe him $40,000. So you take the 120,000 minus the 40,000, how much is the net? 80,000. Now that is my net zakatable assets, the net. Now I take that, now I give 2.5% of this number. 2.5% is the same thing as 1/40, 1/40th. 1/40th is the same thing as 2.5%. So I had 120,000 minus the 40,000, I end up with 80,000. Now I divide that by 40. 80,000 divided by 40 is what? 2,000. So my zakat is 2,000 out of the 80,000. I will take $2,000, give it to a poor person who's eligible, and I will have $78,000 for myself. That $2,000 is zakat. One of the meanings of zakat, the word zakat means purification. Similar to the word tazkiyah, tazkiyatun nafs. Tazkiyatun nafs means to purify the soul, getting removing the bad qualities and putting praiseworthy qualities of iman and yaqeen and tawakkul and zuhud. This is tazkiyah. So just like we need to purify our soul and we need to purify our character, Allah wants us to purify our wealth also. So out of the 80,000, in my example, 2,000 was zakat, 78,000 I keep for myself, or I can do whatever I want with it. I can spend it in any halal manner I wish. If I don't give that 2,000 out of the 80,000 in zakat, my entire wealth has become contaminated. When I take out that 2,000, that 1/40th or that 2.5%, 2.5% is the same thing as 1/40th. If I take out that 1/40th, that will purify my entire wealth from contamination, and whatever is left over, which is the 78,000, will be pure and halal for me to use. If I don't give that 2,000, that 2,000 is contaminated, is filth. It will contaminate all the rest of the money. In one hadith it comes that whatever mal and wealth is destroyed in the ocean and in the land is because people don't give their zakat. Sometimes we hear about accidents or calamities, so much wealth and so much things being destroyed. Many times it's because zakat is not being given. If zakat is given properly, this is a way to preserve the wealth of a person. I made this chart. I based it off of Mufti Desai, Ibrahim Desai Sahib's website, Ask Imam, and I modified it a little bit. Just briefly, I'll go over it. The top orange are the zakatable assets. Those are the pluses. Number 1 is cash. Number 2 is jewelry, gold and silver. Number 3 is business, merchandise to sell. I will get into that later. Number 4 is land and property or houses for selling. Number 5 is shares and stocks that are in a person's name. Number 6 are pensions and retirement funds. Number 7 is the amount of loans that people owe me. If people owe me money, that's actually my money. So I have to add it in my zakatable assets. So I add up all those pluses. Those are 7 major categories. There are some more also. These are the 7 major ones. I mentioned before 3. Gold, silver, and cash. I mentioned 3, these are 7. So I take all those pluses, see the plus under, it says parentheses plus, 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 plus. Then row number 8 is the addition of those 7. You add all those up. So you get the gross zakatable assets. That's orange. Then you have row number 9. That's the minus row, minuses. The total amount of debts owed by you or by me to other people within the next 12 months. So I minus that. I gave the number 120,000 for the gross zakatable assets, and I gave 40,000 for the amount I owe, and the net, which is in the blue, row number 10, is the net zakatable assets. Then that number I divide by 40, so I divided 80,000 by 40, and I got my zakat, which is 2,000. Correct? That is a one way of giving zakat. Okay, now how do I close this and get to the slideshow? Yes, that's good. Jazakallah. All right. Now, inshallah, this slide, inshallah, I will not go in full detail. This is not my presentation. Am I going backwards? Okay. Now I need to go backwards. Yes. This is by one Mufti in UK, Mufti Faraz. He has this slideshow or presentation. Is very good, mashallah, and it covers most of the topics for today, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What is zakat? As I mentioned before, linguistically it means purification. When you purify something, so we are doing zakat of the wealth. We want to purify the wealth, okay? Then some ayat of Quran, inshallah we'll skip this. Some hikmat of zakat. Why do we need to give zakat? Or some reasons. We give zakat because it's the order of Allah. But Allah is Hakim, Allah is wise, Allah is Alim, He's all-knowing. Allah doesn't do or order us to do something without any purpose. Sometimes we cannot understand the hikmah, sometimes we can, sometimes we cannot. Some of the hikmah is, or reasons it is the command of Allah. It purifies the soul from greed and wealth and from impurity. It promotes circulation of wealth. People who've studied economics, they know a healthy economy is where the wealth is being distributed and flowing. Allah mentioned this in Quran, subhanallah, 1400 years ago. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كَيْ لَا تَكُونَ دَوْلَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ. Allah mentions about the spoils of war, which also applies to zakat also. That Allah does not want the wealth to be distributed only amongst a few people. That's what happens in capitalism and interest-based societies. Even now today, you can look it up. I think it was a crazy number I heard. I think the top 15 people, the richest people in the world, they own more money than the rest of the world combined. 15 or 20 or some number like that. That those 15 or 20 people, if you add up their money and you add up the money of all the people in the world, they own more than the other people in the world. That makes those people very powerful and makes them very corrupt also. Many of the things happening in society, even the wars and other things, are based on this. Because few people have the money. The slavery at the time of colonialism, 100 or 200 years ago, that is not around anymore in the way it was. But now there's a different type of colonialism. It's economic slavery, financial dependence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that the wealth should be circulated. So when you're forced to give zakat, you're forced to give 1/40th of your wealth, of your savings, and that gets distributed amongst people. That's a healthy economy. Virtues and admonitions, inshallah, we'll skip this slide, inshallah. Okay, who will give zakat? Or what is the condition for giving conditions? A Muslim will give zakat. Okay, non-Muslim, even if he were to be living in a Muslim country, the non-Muslim will not give zakat. Okay, only Muslim will give zakat. Adult will give zakat. Now, adult here doesn't mean 18 years old. In our society, alhamdulillah, a person who's 18 is not considered a minor anymore, right? Or sometimes 21. At 18 you can get your license, at 21 you can vote, or 18 you can vote. So in Islam, adult means baligh person. When a child reaches bulugh or puberty, then that child is adult in terms of Islamic law, in terms of the requirements like salat and zakat, and also fasting also. So a boy will become baligh between the ages of 12 and 15. A girl will become baligh between the ages of 9 and 15. So by 15 years old, in Islamically, everybody is an adult. So that means any person who's 15 years old, and sometimes even younger than that, will have to give zakat if they have money, keep the fast also, and also pray their salat 5 times a day. Then it becomes farz on them. It's not optional anymore. Third is sane, a person in his right mind, a person who's has mentally challenged or is not in his right mind. They are exempt from zakat. They are not mukallaf. They are exempt from ibadat and orders of Allah. Owner and possessor of wealth equaling nisab. Nisab is a word, one of these words that's going to come again and again. Nisab is the threshold. Nisab, you could say, is the poverty level, the poverty line. Right? When you apply for Medicaid or something, they have the poverty line, all right? Or they have tax brackets, right? So if you have a certain amount of money, if you have above a certain amount, you are considered to be rich, right? You cannot get Medicaid or you cannot get certain benefits because you are a rich person or relatively rich person. If you're below that line or below that level of money, you're considered to be poor. That means you're eligible for different benefits. Similarly, Shariat also has that poverty line. What is that? That's nisab. Nisab means threshold. Sometimes they say quantum. So we'll explain that later, inshallah. And you have to own the nisab for 1 year. And year means lunar year. The difference between the lunar and solar year is about 10 days. That's why Ramadan this year is inshallah March 10th or 11th. Next year Ramadan will be March 1st or so. The year after will be February 20th or so. Every year Ramadan gets 10 days earlier because it's a lunar calendar. It's a lunar year. Okay, now what is nisab? Now when we memorize in Urdu from Talim al-Islam and we say Sade Bawan Tola Chandi Sade Sa, that's so difficult just to say Tola Shola, it's very difficult. We're going to leave the Tola Sholas out here. We're going to go to grams. Okay? Grams is something universal, right? And easier to understand. If a person has gold, there are 2 nisabs. There are actually 1 nisab because in those days the fluctuation between or the variation between gold and silver amount was not that much. Nowadays it's too much, right? The nisab for gold is 87 grams of gold. 87 grams. Okay? And I'm taking out something I looked up so I can share it with you. Okay. The gold is 87 grams. The silver is 612 grams of silver. Now, what does that mean in dollars? I looked up in the Sharia Board website today, a very good website, Sharia Board or sbny.org. It has the everyday day, because gold and silver prices go up and down. So sbny.org or shariaboardny.org, you will get this on the bottom of the first page. You will get the nisab, zakat nisab. The gold nisab, which is 687 grams, is dollars is equal to $5,858. So I'm just going to say 6,000, make it easier. The gold nisab is $6,000. The silver nisab, which is 612 grams in terms of dollars, is what? $455. So I'm going to say $500, okay? I'm just going to round up. The gold nisab is $6,000. The silver nisab is only $500. But it all based on what? Grams of gold or grams of silver. Now, if a person only has gold, which is quite rare. Usually somebody has cash and gold and silver, or a combination of those three. And most people don't have gold or silver, they just have cash, right? Because cash is the common way of currency now, right? Cash is king. So if a person only has gold, it's possible. Maybe a lady only has gold, right? She doesn't have any cash, but they have cash usually. But let's assume somebody, whether man or woman, has only gold. Which nisab will they use? They will use the gold nisab. And in order for them to give zakat, or in order for them to be a poor person in Sharia, a rich person, they will have to reach the gold nisab, which is $6,000. 6,000. If they have gold worth $6,000 or more, then they are rich, and rich people give zakat. If that person only has gold but less than $6,000 worth of gold, then that person is a poor person in Sharia. In other words, they may be eligible to get zakat, but they don't have to give zakat. Similarly, if a person has mixed assets, which is usually 95% of the case, or maybe 99% of the case. Everybody has usually cash and then some gold and some silver, or maybe just cash. Then what will they use? They will use the silver nisab. But there is some difference of opinion from the ulama. There's been fatwas by reliable muftis that because of the great variation between gold nisab and silver nisab, especially in countries like this, because of if you were to make the silver nisab the standard instead of the gold nisab, then it does not differentiate between Sharia-wise poor and needy person. A person who has silver nisab, which is $500, is still a poor person in our society, and he needs money. So that's another issue. Maybe we can talk about that later, or we can ask the ulama, inshallah. But generally speaking, we use the silver nisab. Okay. This is also a little complicated. The cycle, and this is also very confusing. Many people get confused about this. Zakat. Before I get to reading the slide, Zakat has an anniversary date. Every person sitting here who has wealth has a certain date, whether it's Shaban 21st, like today, whether it's Rajab 18th, whether it's Muharram the 7th, whether it's Zulqa'dah the 19th, whatever, everyone has a date. That is your Zakat date. Okay? I can call it a Zakat anniversary date, or Zakat annual date. On that date, I'm going to get to how to figure out the date, but on that date, for example, my date, if I assume, is Ramadan 1st. On Ramadan 1st, I will see that chart I gave you at the beginning of the pluses and the minuses. I will calculate all my pluses, which is basically gold, silver, cash, things I'm selling in my store if I have one. Add them all up and then divide by 40. That is the way of giving, that is the date. Now, how do you get that date? Before I read the slide, that date is the first day when you were baligh that you got wealth up to the nisab. And let's use the silver nisab for now. What is the silver nisab I mentioned? $500. The first day that you, as a baligh person, as a 15-year-old or later, you got $500 or more, whether you got it through working, whether you got it as a gift, whether somebody gave it to you, anytime you got $500 or more, that is the date you start. Let's say that was Ramzan 1st of 20 years ago. Ramzan 1st of 2000, for example. And if Ramzan 1st, 2000, next Ramzan 1st, you also have more than $500, now you have completed the cycle. You have completed the 1 year of having wealth. So now you have to give zakat. You will not give zakat on the 500. You will give the zakat on the amount that you have on Ramzan 2001. Whatever that amount be. That might be 5 million now. It might be 600. It might be a few thousand. Whatever that amount is on that date, 1/40th of that or 2.5% of that will be the zakat you give. So let's read this the slide. The day you own the nisab amount, after deducting liabilities, pencil this Islamic date in your diary. Note it down. And again, let's assume the nisab is $500. It's actually 400 something, but let's just, for easy numbers, 500. It makes no difference whether the wealth increases or decreases during the course of the year. So on the year 2000, 20 something years ago, I got $500, Ramzan 1st. And Ramzan 1st, 2001, between that time, the wealth went up and down. I lost some money, I gained some money. That doesn't matter, as long as I don't go below zero. 1 lunar year later, if I possess or you possess the current nisab, which is like $500 for example, after deducting liabilities on that very same Islamic date, which is Ramzan 1st, you must pay 2.5%, which is 1/40th of your wealth as zakat. This process will continue unless again, I will do the next year. I did it between Ramzan 1st, 2000, Ramzan 1st, 2001. I'll do the same thing between Ramzan 1st, 2001 and Ramzan 1st, 2002. I'll do the same thing. This process will continue unless I have wealth equaling less than nisab, or all of the ones wealth is low. If I lose all my money, then I don't have to worry about giving zakat. I have to worry about other things, but not giving zakat. Okay, what are the zakatable assets? What do I have to worry about when I calculate zakat? Gold and silver. Whether the gold is in jewelry form, whether it's some ornaments or some designs or some frames or whatever form the gold is in, jewelry, I have to calculate the dollar amount. And I will add that in my pluses. Cash, of course, whatever cash is there. Business stock. Business stock means, we're not talking about the stocks that they do in the stock market. Stock here means the business, any items I'm selling. For example, I have a car dealership. I have 50 cars in my lot that I'm selling. I bought those cars not to use. Those cars, I'm selling them, they're for sale. So all of those 50 cars in my lot are my business stock. I have to calculate the dollar value of all those 50 cars and add it into my zakatable assets. Maybe I have a kapra ki dukaan. I sell clothes. I have 500 pieces of clothing in my store. So all those pieces of clothing, I have to calculate how much they're worth or how much I can sell them for. And that is the amount, the dollar amount I will add into my zakatable assets. Agricultural produce and animals and livestock will skip. Many of us don't have those. Non-zakatable items. Which things do I not give zakat on? Jewelry besides gold and silver. A person has some other type, diamond jewelry, or platinum, or some other metal, precious metal, or some type of rubies or gems. That jewelry is not zakatable. You will have to add that up in your zakatable assets. Cars and all vehicles. Which cars? The cars that I'm using. Not if I'm a car dealer. The cars that I use, even if it's a very expensive car. Cars and all vehicles that I'm using throughout the year, I don't have to give zakat. I don't have to worry about them when I calculate my zakat. Properties. Again, properties are those properties I'm living in. If I'm a real estate dealer or if I do real estate, then that's a different story. But if I have land or house that I'm living in, or maybe I have another house, a summer house, I'm living a few months in some other place. Am I living in the house or in the property? Then I don't have to give zakat to that. Similarly, properties I'm renting out on lease, also I have to worry. Electronic appliance, a refrigerator, microwave, electric heater, whatever may be in the house, furniture also, household appliances, there's no zakat on those things. So these are the things that zakat is not there. Okay, this is almost repeat of the previous slide. Gold and silver for personal use will be zakatable. Okay, that includes jewelry for women. White gold, if there's on the gold content, that will be zakatable. Gold plated, we would have to worry about. Gold plated is not considered to be gold in this sense. Cash in hand, whether it's in the bank, coins or notes, this is all zakatable. Okay, now we'll skip this part, inshallah. Liabilities. If you owe money, a person has a car lease. He's leasing a car at 0% finance. Now it's a 5-year, it's not leasing, sorry, it's financing. Leasing is different. Financing, I'm buying the car, but I'm giving installments in 5 years, 60 months. Now, I owe the car company every month $200, for example, that's my payment. There's some ikhtilaf and difference of opinion, but many ulama say that the amount that I owe in the next year, meaning the 12 months of installments, 12 times 200 is $2,400, I can minus that from my zakatable assets. But anything beyond the 12 months, anything beyond the 1 year, I cannot deduct that from my liabilities or my zakatable assets, only within 1 year. Some ulama say only 1 month, but many ulama say up to 1 year. Same thing if it's a Sharia compliant home loan, I owe some money to the Sharia compliant home financing, I can minus the 12 months of payments, not anything beyond the 12 months. So these are some of the masail of zakat, inshallah. I will, okay, shares and stuff, inshallah, we'll skip the agriculture. Okay, this stuff is a little bit more, not that relevant to us, inshallah. Now we'll have for some minutes, some questions. What are the questions of the brothers, inshallah? Yes.
Let's say you make like the $500, and then
Can you repeat that again?
let's say you make the $500, that's like your day, and then after like 4 or 3 months, you lose, like you don't have any more money. So what is like the day then? Like the day you make like when you have to pay the zakat?
Okay, so that the brother is asking question, if you got $500, then after a few days or a few weeks or a few months he lost the $500 or went low, when does he give zakat? So first of all, you have to figure out what is your zakat date. If your zakat date, what is your zakat date? The first day when you became baligh, after you became baligh, you got $500. That is your zakat date. And after that date, you happen to have nisab again, that was your zakatable year. In between that, I give the example of Ramzan 1st 2000 and Ramzan 1st 2001. In between Ramzan 1 of 2000 and Ramzan 1 of 2001, the money went up and down, fluctuated, as long as it did not go to zero. On Ramzan 1 2001, after the year completed, you look at how much money you have now. Maybe you have only 500, maybe you have 5,000. As long as it's above nisab, you give zakat on that amount. If you end up in Ramzan 1 of 2001 with less than $500, with less than nisab, you don't have to give any zakat, because you do not pass 1 year on your zakatable assets. One very confusing thing many people confuse about, again I'm giving the example of Ramzan 1. Let's say Ramzan 1, 2001, the day before, you got a whole bunch of money, right? Some distant relative died who had no other relative, so you became his inheritor. He was a millionaire. So you got, one day before your zakat was due, you got $10 million in your account. Just like that, halal. So you don't have to wait now and the next day your zakat is due, Ramzan first. In that Ramzan first, when you're calculating your zakat, you will calculate the amount that you originally had plus that $10 million. You have to give zakat at that $10 million. It's not that you wait another year for the $10 million to pass by, or you don't wait a year on that $10 million. You have to wait 1 year in the initial stage. Then whenever you reach nisab on your zakat date, if you have nisab, you have to give zakat on that. Yes, brother.
I have two questions.
Yes.
First is, let's say in my retirement, right, I cannot take out the money until 60 years. Do I owe zakat on that? And the second
You're talking about like 401k or pension plans like this?
Yeah.
It's a little complicated. What I understood, Mufti Sahib is here too, maybe he can shed some light. A 401k is basically an investment voluntarily from the side of the employee and in part from the employer. And yes, there are penalties that you accrue if you take out the money before 59 and a half or whatever age they have stipulated. But it's still your money. You have contributed to that. And even some of the portion that the employer gives, even that is your money. Some of it, depending on the vested portion that they have stipulated. So you have to give zakat on that.
Should I deduct the penalty or should I give the zakat?
Should you deduct the penalty? I don't think so. Mufti Sahib, you remember, is here? Penalty is deducted or no? I don't think it's deducted.
It also depends on what kind of 401k it is.
Okay. It's a little complicated. Okay.
The second one, like let's say if I'm saving for Hajj, right?
Yes.
So should I include that amount in my zakat? Or?
Yeah, a person is saving up for Hajj or for some other expense. So even though you know you're going or you intend to spend that money soon, right? Still you have to give zakat on that money, even though you have set it aside and kept it safe. The question was, sisters might not have heard, if a person kept money on the side for Hajj, does he have to give zakat on that? Yes, zakat is still zakatable.
What about the stocks and mutual funds, personal ones?
If the shares, a person has shares, is dealing in the stock market, if a person is buying the shares with the intention of selling them, correct? Then he has to give zakat on the entire amount, because that's considered a trade commodity. Just like I buy a car to sell it, I buy clothes to sell it, or I buy cell phones to sell them. So I'm buying the stock with the intention of selling it, I have to give zakat on the entire value of the stock. But if I'm going to keep the stock and I'm going to benefit from the dividend, that's my intention. Maybe later on I might sell it, maybe, but right now my intention is to keep the stock and just get the dividends. So I will not give zakat on the stock value or the share value, but rather on the dividends that I do end up getting. That will be included in the gross assets. Allahu Akbar. Yes.
What's the punishment for giving zakat late?
Zakat, if a person doesn't give zakat at all, many punishments Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran and Kareem to the near effect that the person's wealth will be made into a snake and it will punish that person in the Akhirah. And so many other hadiths are mentioned about that. Giving late, if a person ends up giving all his zakat, past zakat, before he dies, inshallah, hopefully he will not get any sin for that, or his zakat will be done, his zakat will be fulfilled. But you should not delay in giving zakat that is past due, because that can come at any time. So when zakat becomes due on a person should try to give it as soon as possible. But if there is zakat from the previous years you didn't give, for whatever reason, you were forgetful, maybe at that time you weren't careful about your deed, no problem, give it now. Calculate it and estimate how much you're supposed to give and give it now, inshallah. Yes?
So if you give your zakat late, if you give your zakat late, then your wealth becomes purified again?
Yes, it will be purified, yes. Until a person gives zakat, his wealth is not purified. When eventually a person does give the zakat, even if he's giving it late, inshallah, by that time, when he gives it, his wealth is purified now. Inshallah. Any other questions?
Your first example of 10 million, how to find the distant relative?
That's your job. When you find them, you tell me. Okay? You can make dua in Ramadan, inshallah. Any other questions? Yes.
Many of us give away money just considering, okay, this is my zakat. Even without calculation.
Yes.
So, what do you consider? Is it
Okay.
zakat, it is not zakat?
Very good question. Zakat should be calculated, must be calculated. Okay? So, and zakat, when you give zakat, you must make intention for zakat. It's on the slide later, but I didn't get up to that. When you have to give zakat with their intention. Sometimes you give money, then you say, oh, that was zakat. No, you have to, at the time of giving it, or at the time of separating it, you have to make intention for zakat. Right? Sometimes you separate your money, your zakat money. I give the example of 2,000 out of 80,000, right? I separated it. Maybe I'm not going to give it now. I'm going to wait when I'm traveling somewhere, and I'm going to give it at that time. But I separated at that time, and I made intention this is zakat money. Okay, that's fine. Or when I'm giving it, I have to make intention this is zakat, my zakat. When I'm giving zakat to some poor person, I do not have to tell him that it's zakat. I can say this is a gift. No problem. You don't have to. When I'm giving zakat, if I don't make intention at the time of giving the zakat, or at the time of separating it from my other wealth, then it's not zakat. Your zakat will not be fulfilled. It's just sadaqah, nafal sadaqah. Sadaqah has a general meaning. Sadaqah can be zakat also, but it's just a nafal charity. So your zakat will not be fulfilled. Another point to note, when we give our zakat, we have to give it to the right people. If you don't give it to the right people, then my zakat will not be fulfilled. So if a person is eligible for zakat, and he's a Muslim, he or she, and they're baligh, correct? So you can give to non-baligh also, but that's a little bit more tricky in how to figure out. You have to go to the parents, find out what their parents is. Let's just say I'm giving to a Muslim who's baligh and eligible for zakat, who's poor, my zakat will be fulfilled. If I'm giving it to a non-Muslim, my zakat will not be fulfilled. I cannot give zakat to a dead person. You might say, Maulana Sahib, how can you give zakat to a dead person? Many times what happens when there are disasters, earthquakes or something, people start collecting funds for shrouding the kafan of the mayyit, right? Or the mayyit expenses. So some people give their zakat money, and that money is used for buying kafan. Kafan means the shroud, the white shroud that we cover the dead body with. You cannot use zakat money for that. Because one of the conditions for zakat, you have to give it to a poor Muslim who owns it, who will own the money now, or own the wealth. So a dead person, you're buying a kafan for the dead person. A dead person cannot own anything technically. So it's a good thing to give kafan for dead people, but don't use your zakat money for that. Use your other money for that. Zakat cannot be given to your spouse. Husband cannot give zakat to wife. Wife cannot give husband. Wife cannot give zakat to husband. You cannot give zakat to your children and your grandchildren. Your son, your daughter, your granddaughter, your grandson. You cannot give zakat to your father, grandfather, mother, grandfather, grandmother. But you can and you should give zakat to your brothers, your uncles, your aunts, and your cousins. Why should you give to them? Because when you give to your brothers and aunts and uncles and cousins, you get two rewards. One reward for zakat, one reward for silatul raham. Silatul raham means having good relation with your family members.
So Master, the people you're giving zakat to don't need to know you're giving zakat.
Yes, the person you're giving zakat to does not have to know that this is zakat. You can tell him it's a gift or just keep the money. But your intention, the one who's giving, has to be zakat. Yes,
Can
brother.
we give money to masajid?
Very good question. I was about to mention, but it's good you reminded me. If the masjid is collecting zakat and giving it to poor people, like many masjids do, like they do in this masjid, they do in Masjid Bilal, they have a separate box for zakat, they collect the zakat money, they give it to poor people. Poor people come to the masjid or they fill out an application, then they make sure that they're eligible, then they give it to them. But the zakat money, the masjid is collecting and using it for the building, or using it for electric bill, or water bill, or paying the salary of the imam or the teachers. That's not jais, that's not permissible. Similarly, madrasas, if the madrasas, usually they do it correctly because they're ulama there, usually, alhamdulillah, they take the zakat money, they give it to the poor students. Many of the students are zakat eligible, so they give it to them. But to give to, if the madrasa collects zakat money and uses it for make a building, or uses it to for other expenditure, that's not jaiz. That's not permissible. Or similarly, you cannot use zakat money to build a well. There's a village that needs a well of water. You cannot use that water, the zakat money, to build the well. It's very great sadaqah to give to build a well. You should use some other money, not your zakat money, because a well is not owned by one person. A well is a public property that's used by the whole village or by the whole community. So one of the things for zakat, or condition of zakat, it has to be owned by the poor person. The poor living Muslim must own it. Then he can do whatever he wants with it.
Also, question from sister side.
Yes.
Can zakat be given to the people suffering in Palestine?
People suffering anywhere. May Allah Ta'ala give afiyah to the people of Palestine and all the Muslims all over the world, and relieve them from the zulm. The usul is, or the principle is, the rule is, any person, any Muslim who doesn't have, who's poor, who's below nisab, correct? They're allowed to get zakat. That's the basic. I'm making it very simple. Now, a person, whether in Palestine or any person who lost everything, who doesn't have anything, all they have is their clothes on their back, right? Then obviously, inshallah, they can take zakat. But one thing to be careful, if we're giving zakat to an organization that's distributing zakat to poor people in different places, different countries, some of the organizations, they're not so careful about zakat money, and they treat zakat money like regular, like nafal sadaqah money. Nafal sadaqah money you can even give to a non-Muslim, right? Which is not zakat. You can give sadaqah to a non-Muslim. You can give a gift to a non-Muslim. But zakat has to be given to a Muslim who's eligible. So if an organization is giving, taking zakat money, collecting and giving it to poor people in earthquake area or area where there's war or calamity, and they're not giving it to the poor people in their hand, the money, or in the form of food or in the form of clothing, but rather they're building a hospital, or they're using the zakat money to build an orphanage, then the zakat money will not be fulfilled. The zakat will not be fulfilled of those who gave the money. So if you are giving to organizations, find out from them how are they using the zakat money. Sometimes they don't know. They have good intention, but they're not so careful about the masail and about the ahkam.
So what's up? Sometimes there are administrative costs that they charge also. So
the brother is asking that there's administrative costs that the organization has to pay for their services of collecting zakat and distributing it. For those administrative costs, that organization cannot use zakat money. They have to use some other money, some other funds, donations, sadaqah. They can use that for the administrative costs, or the cost of sending the food or sending the supplies. But the zakat money has to be used to buy food or clothing or cash, given in the hand, in the ownership of the poor people.
What about the chitti? A lot of people do the neighborhood chittis. Circulate the money. Committees.
Committees like 10, 12 people donate 100, or they pool $100 together, and then my turn will come up. My turn might come up after the 6th month or the 12th month. So that's still your money. So if I donated it, I pooled the money in a committee. That's, although I'm going to get it 1 year later or 6 months later or 5, that's still my money, right? So I have to give zakat on that. When I calculate my zakatable assets, I would add that $100 that the $100 or $1,200?
$1,200. 12 people with
It'll be 100 or 12? It'll be 1,200, right? No, yeah. It depends on when I'm going to get the money. If I'm going to get the money the last, then I have to give, well, actually.
It will be like that, or what would I have paid? So
yeah,
that's what is the 12 months, and I only paid 5 months, $500. That's $500 in his money, right?
Yes. As much as you paid, yes. So if it's the first month that you're giving, if your zakat date happens to come in the first, after your first payment, you only have to give zakat on that $100. But if it came after 5 months, then you gave 500, that 500 is yours, even though somebody else is using it right now. You have to give it, you have to add $500 to your zakatable assets. One last masla, or one other masla which is very common, the wives gold or assets are separate from the husband. Sometimes we think that zakat is a family thing. Actually, it's not a family. It's very possible that the husband is giving zakat and the wife is not giving zakat, or vice versa. Or maybe the son has to give zakat and the father doesn't have to give zakat. Each and every person has to be calculated separately. The baligh people in the house, the children who are above 15, many of them have money. They have jobs or they got gifts. So his zakat, the zakat of the son is separate, or the assets of the son are separate, the assets of the daughter are separate, the assets of the wife, husband are all separate. Yes, if the husband wants to give zakat on behalf of his wife, with her permission and with her knowledge, he can do so. But if he's just giving zakat on her behalf and she doesn't even know it, then her zakat is not fulfilled. She has to know and give permission, and the husband, if he wants to, or the other way around, if the wife wants to give zakat on the husband's behalf, that's also fine. You can give zakat on behalf of anybody else, any other Muslim, even if he's not a relative, but as long as they know and they acknowledge and they approve that you're doing it for them. Question from the sister side. The question is, what if someone gave zakat to relatives to distribute on their behalf, and if it's not given to eligible people, then who will be responsible? So if I'm appointing some of my relatives in Pakistan, I'm telling my cousin, Hamza, please give zakat on my behalf. I'm going to send you $100, you give it out. When I'm choosing somebody to give zakat on my behalf, it's my responsibility to make sure that he's reliable and trustworthy, right? I don't have to go so deep, and if I feel that he's a reliable person and he knows how to give zakat. Some people are very sincere, but they don't know the masail of zakat, right? So he may end up giving zakat to a person who's not eligible, or he may end up giving zakat to build a well or build a hospital, and my zakat will not be fulfilled. So I have to pick somebody who knows the masail of zakat and who I'm trustworthy. If I pick a person like that, and that person, and I did my due diligence in choosing that person, and that person didn't do it properly, and I don't even know about it, inshallah, we hope from Allah, Allah will forgive me. But if I didn't do my due diligence and I just picked a random person without doing my research or my due diligence in picking that person, then I will also get sin, of course. So it depends on the process of how I chose that person or that organization. Many people give their zakat to organizations. Same thing will apply. ठीक है इंशाल्लाह?
One question. Assuming that the Darul Uloom has 5 students who are poor and cannot pay the fees, the fees are $4,000 per year, and they appeal to the community to give zakat on behalf of the 5 students. If they only collect $20,000, or if they collect more, what do they do with the money?
Well, I don't really know the answer to that, but I know that if the fees of the question was that if there's a sister if I didn't hear the question, if a Darul Uloom or a madrasa is collecting zakat on behalf of 5 students who are poor, they have 5 students who are eligible for zakat, and the fees are $4,000. So if they're collecting more than $20,000 of zakat, is that permissible, or how does that work? So one point, I'm not answering the question because I don't know the answer to it completely, but that fees doesn't really cover the cost of the child. The fees will be a number of 4,000, for example, but the actual expenses behind that child will probably be more than that. Now, is it jaiz, or how would it be jaiz to collect more money than that amount? That I don't know the answer. I can try to find out it. But it has to do with tawqil, wakalat, and tamliq, and what the madrasas also do, they find out how many zakat eligible students are there, and the students who are baligh and adult, they make the madrasa administration the wakil, that will collect zakat on my behalf, and you will use the zakat do tamliq on my behalf also. You will be owners of the zakat on my behalf, and then the madrasa will use it for their expenditures. Allah.
I guess the question should be, how much should each child be collecting? Or how much should the madrasa collect for each child?
How much should the madrasa collect for each child? I don't know the answer.
Because it's so common these days that madrasas are asking for zakat, but we don't get any feedback as to how they're using that zakat.
Well, to get feedback, the people who are giving zakat or anybody should go to the management and ask them, where is the zakat going? And inshallah, I assume that
there should be a little more transparency.
Yeah, they can do like that. Ji.
Is it allowed to give cloth and other commodities
In zakat. Very good. A very good question. Can you give clothing or food or other items as zakat? Yes. Let's say I give the example in the beginning, $2,000 zakat money. I could give the $2,000 cash to a poor person, or I can buy $2,000 worth of food or clothing. But whatever I buy, food or clothing or some other, even I can buy him a car, for example, but I have to give that car or that clothing or that food or that cash directly to that poor person, and he will become the owner.
In that case, do we need to take their permission or not?
No, you don't have to take the permission. No. You can just, a person wants to give food, zakat in the form of food, I use my zakat cash to buy food, and I give the food to that person, poor person's house, and say, this is for you, gift. That's fine.
But what about they don't agree on that, but they want cash?
Sometimes it's better to give cash because it's more useful to them, but if I give food to a poor person for using my zakat money to buy that food, my zakat will be done. The poor person may say that, please give me cash instead of food, but zakat will be fulfilled from my side if I give him food or other items.
So for the people that are giving zakat late, right? Like they never really gave zakat before, but now they want to give zakat.
Right.
What if they can't remember how much they need to
Very good question. A person didn't give zakat before when he was young. Now he realizes that I should have been giving zakat. What should I do? How do I calculate? I don't remember how much money I had 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So for that, just like the example, if a person missed a lot of salat in their life, because you have to make it up. So what do? You sit down and you think a little bit and you make a guess. You make a guess. Estimation. Similarly with the money, okay, when I was 17 years old, I got my first job in the summer, for example, and I must have got some money at that time. So that must be my date. Many people don't know there is a zakat date. So what do? You have to guess your zakat date. And if you still can't guess, then you pick a date and you keep that date as your zakat date every year. And zakat date doesn't have to be Ramadan. Many people give zakat in Ramadan, but it's not necessary to give zakat. Your date, whatever your date is, it could be Rajab, it could be Muharram, it could be Rabiul Awwal. You have to stick to that date. Back to your question. So if a person 15 years ago didn't pay zakat for the last 15 years, he has to sit down, take a guess, try to calculate. Maybe he has some records, bank account statements or something. Whatever possible way he tries to guess the amount of money he has and give zakat. And if you give a little bit more, it's better. If you give a little extra, you're sure that you covered the zakat amount. If you give extra, you get enough full reward for that also. If your zakat date is before Ramadan, and let's say your zakat date is Muharram, but you want to give zakat in, your zakat date is Zulhijjah. Zulhijjah comes after Ramadan, right? But you want to give your zakat in Ramadan 2 months early, you can do that. You just calculate how much money you probably will have in Zulqa'dah, and you give that in zakat. Then in Zulqa'dah, when the actual date comes, you recalculate and you make sure that there was no less amount given. You calculated in Ramadan that you have to give $2,000 zakat. But when Zulqa'dah came around, it actually turned out you had a lot of money. It was actually 3,000 zakat you should have given. No problem. You already gave 2,000, give 1,000 extra. What about the opposite happened? You gave 2,000 Ramadan. When Zulqa'dah came around, you figured out that you only had to give 750 in zakat because you gave 2,000. No problem. That extra 1250 is extra reward for you. But you cannot roll it over next year. Right? I gave 1250 extra last year, I give 1250 less, you can't roll over. One person asked me that at the Zakat. You cannot do that. Maybe in taxes you can, but not in Zakat. Zakat is not tax.
Can you pay your Zakat in advance?
Yes, I just did. You can pay your Zakat in advance, few months in advance. You can give Zakat years in advance if you want to. I can give the Zakat for the next 10 years of my life, but every year that my Zakat date comes, I have to match, figure out, did I pay more or did I pay less? Or did I pay the right amount? If I paid less, I have to pay the difference. If I paid more, that's extra reward for me.